Hello and welcome to the Cougar Proud Podcast. This is Greg Woods, WSU beat writer for the Spokesman Review, joined every week by Jamey of CougFan.com. And we have some breaking news that has nothing to do, actually it kind of does. I believe we have figured out the trick in how we can get WSU to pick up huge players at a moment's notice. The answer is have me just be watching a movie or a TV show, and the next thing you know, they will reel in a huge piece. Because if you remember the last time we had something like this, it was Kirby Voorhees coming back. And I believe I was watching the Stranger Things finale, and I had to pause to write that up. The other night, last night, I was watching, for the first time ever, the movie Die Hard. And
the first time ever?
First time ever. And it was kind of a thing where I knew it was like a big one to watch, and I feel bad for not having watched it. But the more time passed and the more people gave me a hard time for it, I was like, you know what? Now I just want to watch it even less because now I'm just like annoyed. But I swear to God, last night I turned it on probably around like 9, and then the movie ends, and then next thing you know, it's like 9 o'clock. Lance McGee is flipping to Washington State from Oregon State. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. So I guess if the Cougs need any more help down the line in the portal, just have you turn on a movie or something.
I was walking in. I was literally had parked my car, was getting out, was meeting one of my friends' birthday, so a bunch of us were meeting up, and parked my car to start walking towards the brewery that we're first meeting at, and that's when the Balam Miller news breaks. So, I, as always, have my computer with me. So take my computer into the brewery, write the article, drop it back off in my car. So, no one's, I don't expect anybody to like feel sorry, woe is us. We have to write about college football for a living. But this time of year is just totally insane for people like us. It's just at a moment's notice. It's like, I got to write this up, write that up. And, it's not that big of a deal. Like these, I don't know about you, but I get pretty good at like writing these up when they come across, like, there are other offers. Here's where they're coming from, the snaps and stat, whatever. So it gets pretty easy after a little bit, but it's built-in content, right? It's, it's built-in content.
It's the gift that literally has not stopped giving for anybody here. So we figured that we would kind of just spend a lot of this episode going through all the different guys that they've gotten out of the portal, which as of we are recording this on Monday evening, and that number is 24, which actually includes Bo Phillips, who's a PWO running back out of Central Washington. So 24, 23, depending on how you count
the JC guys in that too.
Yes.
Okay. Then I think it's... Wait, how many did you say you had?
I said 24. Is that not what you have?
Yeah, the 20 including Phillips. Martinson's 21.
Martinson, the receiver
Max
today.
Dean's 22.
The receiver today from
that's 23.
Ryan McKendry.
Yeah.
Is it not 20? Okay, yeah, so I said 24 or 23, depending on if you count both. Phillips.
And then there's the Montana Western walk-on defensive tackle.
Is that news to me?
Sione Posse. Yeah, he tweeted the other day that he was grateful to receive a PWO from Washington State, and now his Twitter says DL at Washington State. So
okay, well, we are finding this out together, apparently.
Pretty much.
Me and the listeners. So 24, 25, depending on who you count in the mix there. So anyway, the point is, that's what we figured we would spend a lot of this episode doing, just going through these in order and kind of giving our thoughts and, seeing who we are the highest on. So, and there's some big ones that we'll get to. Like Caden Pinnock might be the quarterback next year. Tank Hawkins for Florida, and we'll get to all those. So hang with us, and we will get to each guy. And we will start at the very beginning, which January 3rd. Actually, we covered some of these in our last episode.
We talked about like Nyland Brown,
and then the two cornerbacks,
Tucker and Jalen Thomas.
Yeah. Okay. So we're going to skip those three and move and go straight to the 5th, which is after we recorded last week's episode. And the first one that we're going to start with is Jeremiah Bernard, is a safety from Cal Poly. Just to kind of give you the rundown on some of his numbers. Played all 12 games last season, 8 starts, 6 pass breakups, 4 interceptions. It's kind of crazy, especially for only starting 8 games. six feet 195 listed at 57 tackles, 1 sack. All Big Sky's second team at the end of the season, and he's like many positions on this team, his addition is important because of what they're losing at the safety spot between Tucker Lodge and Kale Reeder and Matt Durant. So yeah, what do you think about this guy?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first thing that jumps out is obviously there's some familiarity with Brandon Thompson. Now, granted, Thompson's coaching corners, Bernard's playing safety, but you start to kind of look deeper, and this is a guy who, excuse me, take Pro Football Focus as you will. Sometimes, obviously, everyone's got their opinion on it, but a grade of north of 87. I mean, you start to look at between FBS and FCS safeties. I mean, one of the top-rated safeties amongst all levels this past year. FCS alone, 14th highest of qualified safeties. A pretty darn good grade. I mean, a guy who missed just 5 tackles, considering how often he was in the mix for having to make tackles. He's got a little bit of size, and I think there's a lot of reasons to be intrigued by what he can do. I mean, the guy had 7 tackles against Utah, according to PFF, didn't miss any. Obviously there's a competition that is different, but I think when you're talking about a guy in coverage, the number that stands out is again, the PFF grades are what they are, but numbers are numbers, and his NFL passer rating against was 58.5, which is downright elite. So yeah, he's a guy who I think could very well be maybe something in the mix of almost like what I don't want to say exactly like Tucker Large, but maybe something of that ilk of a guy who his strength is as a coverage safety and could maybe even slide down and play some nickel if they have that a little bit more nickel packages under Trent Bray.
Yeah, I'll be fascinated to see what kind of defense we see them run this season, which will in turn affect his role. I mean, do they go 4-5, which is what Jake Dickert ran here, or more of a 4-3, which is what, oh my God,
Jimmy Rogers.
I realize that, but there's like 8 coaches running through my head right now. And Jesse Bovitz ran, or something else entirely. I don't know. There's also, did you see the clip of him making one of his picks last year, Bernard? He kind of turns around mid, the ball's like in flight and just like grabs. It was a crazy catch. So I think he's going to be squarely in the mix for a starting role. And this is actually, I don't know how long we want to spend on each guy, but this is a pretty good segue into the next one in order, which is another safety, Jack Ball. Hopefully I'm saying his name right. I think it's actually long or short for a longer like Polynesian name.
Yeah, it's like his Twitter handle is like Jack. It's starts with like a K. Jack Quinton Ka'imipono Ball. So I think Ball is the last name, but I think Jack is short for Jack Quinton, and then Ka'imipono, his middle name. But he's the type of guy that I've always find fascinating. A guy who wasn't maybe going to see the field at ASU, but also drew a lot of high reviews from people who covered ASU of he was kind of one of the guys that we've talked about for a long time, the guys who show a lot in, fall camp and spring practice, but just maybe aren't quite able to get on the field. That said, sometimes those guys leave Washington State and have gone on to have opportunities and play well at other places. This could be kind of the inverse of that, where Ball wasn't going to maybe see the field at ASU, but will maybe have that chance at Washington State. He's got good size at 6'2", 195 pounds, a walk-on who earned a scholarship. He did get into a couple games this year. So I think a guy who, if nothing else, special teams and can provide some depth.
I was going to say, does it not make you nervous? Like, it makes me, like, if I'm a fan, it would make me a tiny bit nervous just knowing he just, did not get on the field at all.
I think it just depends on, the expectation. Like, if they're saying, no, this guy's coming in and he is going to be our starting all-conference, do everything safety, that's one conversation. But I think when you look at, Bernard, and then you look at, obviously, the fact that Kyle Peterson is back, I imagine they will probably try and bring in another safety or two. I think you start to see, okay, maybe he's probably more of that 3-4, kind of almost like what Deron Goodman was this past year before he got hurt, where you're not counting on him to play 60 snaps a game, but if you put him in for 10 to 15, he can give you some good reps.
Well, and if we learned anything from last year, it was just like the importance of rotating the way they did. I mean, like, I know that wasn't as prevalent at the safety spots, but just in general, keeping guys fresh has paid huge dividends for them. So I could see him slotting into that kind of role. All right, well, moving right along here, maybe the one with the biggest, or one of the biggest names in terms of where he's coming from, is Tank Hawkins, who was a wide receiver from Florida. Kind of a fascinating story where he plays. Well, he played the most as a true freshman in 24, and then the 25 season rolls around. He plays 8 games. Billy Napier gets fired from Florida, decided to opt out for the rest of the season, which is a thing that happens now in college football. Their interim head coach was okay with it and gave him the green light, and it was all good. So overall, he played in 8 games in 2 years, total catches, 12 catches for 116 yards and 1 touchdown, which came in as a true freshman season. The biggest thing with him was just the speed. I mean, yeah. I think he had there was something I read that he ran a 4.25 40-yard dash at a Ohio State camp, but he was getting recruited. So, I mean, he's going to be on the field. He's that fast. He's going to make an impact.
You know, I think there's give or take 3 kinds of guys that you take if you're Washington State out of the portal. You take the FCS guys that are coming up, you know, the guys who have been good at the FCS level and are making that jump. You take, you know, maybe the veteran FBS players or Power 4 players who just haven't really maybe hit their stride, you know, the Jack Peterson, who we'll get to in a minute, kind of the example. Or you take maybe the reclamation projects, you know, the guys like Hawkins or DJ Warner, who haven't maybe hit that potential, but have that high potential, still are young, still maybe you feel like, all right, they get a chance to get snaps here. This is where they could really flourish. And I think everyone kind of falls into some mix of that. There are exceptions, you know, Nyland Brown being an FBS transfer up. But it is an interesting concept. And I think that's the type of guy Washington State needs to take a guy like Hawkins. And you know, I know that the immediate fear that people have is, well, if he has a great year at Washington State, he's gone.
But that's just the way it goes.
That's a selling point, though. You can say, come here, have one great season, and then transfer back up to the SEC or whatever. That can be a marketing play right now.
It should be. Like because they have a credible history. I mean, you look at John Mateer, you look at obviously Cam Ward. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. And I know that like some Coug fans would hear that and be like, "Oh, we want to just be a place that people go to for a year and then use it as like." Well, it's like, you know, it's always been just to different extents. It's always been a little bit of a stepping stone, whether it's for coaches or players. That just gets exacerbated to a kind of an extreme level, and you know, 2026 college football. So I think he's going to be awesome, man. And not just because, I mean, like the thing is that like they so much of the way the last season is wrapped up and the next season is going to come into focus is kind of realizing the problems with last year's offense and how much you know, Danny Freund might have been handcuffed. They didn't have a whole lot at receiver to work with, is what I'm trying to say.
At least not they had a lot of like steady veterans, the Merediths, the Nogas, not so much the absolute game breakers, right? The Kyle Williams of the world.
Right. I think it'll be a lot of fun to watch him too. Like I mean, that was maybe like the biggest, like the most like damning part of last year's offense. It was just boring to watch. Like, no, I mean, for me at least, I was like, all right. I mean, some
until
people
Danny Freund got to call his own offense.
Oh my God, man! Hey, good for him, man. Get back to North Dakota and get.
That's awesome. I was thrilled for him when I saw that job opening. I'm like, this is everything falling into place. Like I'm thinking, you know, because it's a different coach than he had worked for. It's Eric Schmidt, who had been at SDSU and UW, and I'm thinking, just this has got to align perfectly. Like, I believe Kirby Moore worked with Eric Schmidt at Fresno State, and if I'm not wrong about that, I do wonder if there was maybe any sort of like helping that out, even if, you know, obviously Freund was a known commodity at North Dakota, but no, that's great for him. And, you know, the after he got a really raw deal where, you know, didn't really get to kind of have the whole autonomy over his offense, to kind of have everything fall into place, get a chance to go back to where you really got your start, where you did get your start, where you played, where you coached, is great for him.
A funny anecdote is that when I was covering Idaho State back in the day, even back then, like 2022, there was a little bit of like, okay, who is the AD following? Could that be a clue? And who the next coach is going to be? Da da da. And I should ask him honestly. I was wondering if he was going to be a candidate for the Idaho State job back in the day. Because I was like, well, he's been in North Dakota, da da da. And so anyway, it didn't come to fruition, but it did work out for him in the end. So, so Tate Hawkins, yeah, he's going to be great. He could have gone anywhere he wanted out of high school, out of IMG Academy, Alabama, Penn State, Oregon, Miami. I mean, you name it. So he's going to be a big piece of the offense next year for almost for sure, almost certainly. Next one, Caden Pinnock, baby, quarterback out of UC Davis. As we talk about him, we could be talking about next year's starter, and I don't think that's very far-fetched at all. Completed 70, can you believe this? 70% of his passes for 3,206 yards, 32 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Big Sky Freshman of the Year. 125 carries, 437 yards, and 3 more touchdowns on the ground. Dual threat guy, total athlete. What do you think about him?
I think what's his most recent game? He throws for 400 yards against a team that was a kick away from winning the FCS national title.
I was about to say,
that's pretty darn impressive. You look at what he was able to do. A number of games over 300 yards. I mean, a total of over 300 yards passing and rushing against Montana State. Threw 3 touchdowns against Idaho. Did throw 2 picks. Ran for 1 touchdown. He had 4 touchdowns against Idaho. Wazzu scored 1 last year. So I think there's a lot. I mean, Northern Arizona wasn't the best team in the world last year, but they went 7-5, and he threw 5 touchdowns on them. So there are certainly a lot of things to like, and I think the thing you really like is he's young. He's a redshirt freshman, so you don't feel like he's hit his ceiling yet. But 3,200 yards, 32 touchdowns and 3 on the ground, I think is the type of quarterback that is going to be a very good fit for what Kirby Moore wants to do, and maybe kind of a good mix of mobility, arm strength, the ability to make decisions, make plays. So, I think he's going to be a guy that you never know. I mean, as far as we know right now, Julian Duggar is still going to be back at Washington State. We haven't heard otherwise, and the portal closes in 4 days. But I think spring ball day one, he would be the favorite. But again, I think he's the favorite, but we don't want to say in January he's going to be the starter in September.
If we learned anything from last year, covering last year's team, is that it is not smart to predict the starting quarterback too early, even though we ended up being right in the end.
We didn't even predict it right 3 days before. Let alone
we did in the end, though, is what I'm trying to say.
But let alone 8 months. So, no, I think he'll be a really good player for him. He's
going to be great. Do you know? So, did you see the clip of him playing against? I think it was this like FCS kickoff, some sort of like. It was supposed to be a regular game against Mercer at the very beginning of their season last year, and he has this like really crazy highlight where he's like, I'm just watching it right now. He's like dancing around guys and darting left and right. Eventually, runs into it for a touchdown from like 8 yards out or so. That game ended up not counting because the game was like postponed due to lightning.
It was a weather delay. So it's funny because if you look on like PFF, it has the game and it has his numbers. And I am curious.
They're supposed to be voided, is what I read.
Right, but I don't think the stats count against like his official stats, but PFF still has them.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
No, actually, but I'm looking. It has his grade. It doesn't have his actual stats that we're in, so we'll never know. But
he got a great grade for a game that didn't actually happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's going to be great, man. The other thing that I kind of wanted to get your thoughts on as well is they have another quarterback on the roster as well, which is Owen Eshelman, who he's on the roster, supposedly should be in the mix, at least theoretically. I mean, for our sanity, I hope we don't have to cover a third straight quarterback battle during fall camp, but it'll be interesting. Interesting to see what how they evaluate the quarterbacks and like the criteria they have, because I don't think it's that far fetched to say that Eshelman would be just like last year's. Okay, he was a true freshman, kind of whatever, but like he kind of has the same kind of skill set as Caden Pinnock at least. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what they think of Eshelman, because I don't really it's just hard to tell what they, what the criteria is.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this. I would think if they weren't interested in what he can bring, they wouldn't have made an attempt to re-sign him.
Yeah.
So, and I think vice versa, if he didn't think he was going to get a fair shake, he wouldn't have agreed to come back. So I think it's a very interesting dynamic of it. That's why, it's, again, on paper, Pinnock would be the favor, but I do think that there are reasons to believe that Eshelman and Duggar will have opportunities to compete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the thing with Duggar, I think, is just that he just hasn't really thrown the ball very much, which is the point of the quarterback position.
This is true. But even if you find a wildcat role for him, and I would trust Kirby Moore to implement that more than Jimmy Rogers. So
he was once they figured out that he was best in that role, they used him pretty well, and I think he looked pretty good. It was just a matter of figuring out what is he best at. So I don't. It's great. Can you imagine a world where there's an Owen Esselman versus Cade Pinnock quarterback battle in August?
Wouldn't that be something?
So we'll see how that plays out. But awesome pickup, and he'll be squarely in the mix. That's for sure.
Yes.
All right, who we got next? Next is moving on to maybe the most fascinating prospect of all time, Nathaniel Salmon. A tight end who was playing in the most recently the Los Angeles Chargers minicamp. For those who don't know, maybe there's some people out there that don't really know his story. So he did not play football for the first time in late 2024. So a little over a calendar year ago. Was a native of New Zealand, was playing pro basketball. I mean, you go to his Twitter right now, there's videos of him dunking ball. It's crazy. So he later ended up in Australia, and he got an invite to an NFL academy there. When he was there, he became one of 14 players selected to the NFL's International Player Pathway. And then that's kind of designed to get more players in from other countries besides the U.S. and Canada. And then he ends up getting an invite to the IMG Academy in Florida, where he spends 10 weeks training at the tight end spot, which is what they kind of figured out was best for him. And then ends up at the Los Angeles Chargers minicamp, which if you look up pictures of him right now, you'll see those. And that's the world we live in now. I get it. He didn't actually sign a contract. There's nothing binding about that. But just the image of a guy going from NFL minicamp to college eligibility is just nuts.
Genuine question. Is David Riley on the phone right now saying, whoa. Wait a second here.
The other day, I went by basketball practice to do interviews for a different story, and I was like, "Hey, Andy Okafor, you got some competition, my friend."
I mean, I don't know. The idea of, I do wonder. Now, here's the tough part, though.
But the season's overlapped. There's no way.
Well, that, and I don't think. I don't know if he would have basketball eligibility because he's played pro basketball now for 4 years. So I don't think he would have that. It'd be a whole thing. Obviously, if there was a way to get him in, I'm sure they've probably looked at it, but I'm also pretty sure that he's just coming in to play football.
Yeah. I don't. Have you ever heard of a more fascinating or a prospect with a more interesting story? We thought it was going to be John Hebert, the running back in Houston, who didn't have a phone. But now we have a tight end who didn't play football for the first time in a little over a calendar year ago.
Yeah, I think that's your winner.
You want to hear something funny about his story? There's an article I read about him, and I think it is an Australian news outlet, and they interviewed him about committing to Wazzu and all this, and he's talking about going to the Chargers minicamp, and his quote is, "I was pretty chuffed about that." And I had to look up, chuffed? That sounds positive, but I don't really know what that means. And apparently it's like a pleasantly surprised, I was chuffed about that. That was awesome kind of a thing. So if you ever want a new phrase to use, there you go. But yeah, Nathaniel Salmon tight end. The only thing is that they're kind of loaded at tight end, though.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
The thing is he can redshirt.
That's true. That's true.
So
maybe he'll end up redshirting. Yeah. So yeah, maybe he doesn't get on the field right away because they're in a pretty good spot right now at tight end with Trey Lechner and Bo Baker in the fold, and Jack Peterson, like you said at the top, who's a transfer from UCLA. But sooner or later, we'll make an impact. We're sure of that.
Yes, absolutely.
Moving right along here, we got four people on the defensive line, starting with Ike Okafor, who was a defensive tackle from Cal. He actually did not play last season at all. He redshirted. From Nigeria, had all kinds of offers out of high school, from Texas Tech to Minnesota to Houston, ASU, Pittsburgh, UNLV. Do we think he gets on the field right away, or what do you think about Ike Okafor?
I would think so. I think just in the fact they don't have a lot of numbers at that position, but I think that's a guy who, again, Andrew Browning knows, recruited to California, obviously thinks pretty highly of, and the type of guy who, wants probably an opportunity to play and probably sees a better pathway with a coach he knows and with the opportunity to play maybe at a non-ACC level.
Yeah. I mean, they need bodies, for all, as they need bodies is the point. And not that he's just that. I think that he has awesome size, 6'3", 280. 280 is crazy. But plenty of athleticism too. And we think he'll make an impact. Pretty raw prospect though. So I also, you just never know with guys like that. Okay, moving right along here, we have. Oh God, I'm gonna butcher this. He's the German guy, Linus Zunk.
I'm guessing it's probably in the native tongue, Linus Zunk, but Linus Zunk probably Linus Zunk probably is the American version of it.
Wait, are you tapped in with the German pronunciations? How do you know that?
Soccer. Watching soccer for almost 30 years.
30. Oh yeah, Unk, as all the kids now say. All right. Well, however you pronounce his name, has a pretty. I mean, this is actually, and we'll get into this a little later. I separated some of these guys into guys I feel great about and some guys that I'm more on the fence about. And he fell into the category of guys that I feel great about, just because of the resume experience. I mean, 6'6", 270. I mean, that's defensive tackle size. That's crazy. But yeah, last fall, 15 tackles, 3.5 for loss. For his career, 38 tackles, 7.5 for loss. I would not be surprised if, week one. By the way, I think week one's going to be the Apple Cup this coming year.
That's exactly what it's going to be.
You ever heard of a week? That's insane.
I mean, maybe in 1918.
Yeah, back when they were playing the Spokane YMCA.
Exactly.
Point is, I think he might be starting day one.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that you look at the numbers and it's, wait a minute, this guy was actually productive in the SEC. I mean, now we're not talking 13 sacks, but 3.5 tackles for loss. Now, 2 did come against Utah State, but that's who they're playing. That type of opponent who they're playing, right? So I think when you look at the fact that he was able to, he was a rotational player at Vanderbilt. I mean, again, this is not a guy who played a few snaps here or there. Oh, he played 25 snaps at No, I mean, you look at the numbers, and he's played 760 snaps in the SEC. So this is a pretty massive get. And the type of guy who, Isaac Terrell aside, you look at, okay, you lost Janikowski into Ase, but I don't think, to me, this is a clear-cut upgrade of a guy who pretty much put up similar, if not better, numbers at a ridiculously higher level.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is that, kind of like you mentioned, with so much of that production coming against Utah State, is that do you still feel the same way about what he was able to do?
I mean, I still think he had a sack against Tennessee, and he was still playing. He was still playing a role on a very good Vanderbilt. I mean, that's the other thing. Vanderbilt won 10 games this year. It's not the guy played 243 snaps on a Power 4 team, but it was Oklahoma State. Or Maryland. It was a very good Power 4 team.
Well, maybe we owe Nick Haberer an assist for this one. Maybe he put in a good word about Pullman or something. I don't know. But yeah, he will be here and might be a day one starter. Okay, this is actually the one that I actually maybe I'll just tell you. So Adua Okunde, Hopefully I'm saying his name correctly, which I take very seriously.
Probably, yeah. Okendei, I would imagine.
Okay. But yeah, this one is the way I see this one is a little bit of a roll of the dice. He played 8 games in 2 years at Arizona. 4 of those came on special teams. 6'2", 243. Had offers out of high school from Houston, K-State, San Diego State. Like when I told you I separated these guys into guys I feel great about and more ones that I'm more on the fence about, he was one that fell into the list of guys I feel more on the fence about just because like there's not a whole lot of like experience or like production to speak of, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's an upside play. I think would be the simplest way to put it. He's a guy that, doesn't have a ton of production, hasn't played a lot of games, but, you're hoping that a fresh start, a new look, maybe again, an easier schedule comparatively to what he'd been playing in the Big 12 might open up some opportunities for him. But these are the type of guys who, again, I'm saying I think are still very good takes for Washington State because, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But the upside is there. Now, you can't just take these guys, right? You have to take the guys like Zonk and McLean, who we'll get to. But you sprinkle in a couple of the upside plays, and the potential is massive. So, I think the basketball team is seeing that right now. You take a flyer on Emily Elaho, who didn't play a whole lot of Texas Tech, and he's been very good for him.
Yeah.
So I do think there is an art to it, and you have to, again, you can't just take all of those guys. But I do think some of those guys like Okafor and Okendei, those are the types of guys that, all right, you bet on and you see, okay, do they have some upside in there that maybe just hasn't been tapped into yet?
This is also, before we move on to our next player, this is also part of the reason why, like, everybody's been talking about, oh my God, they must have gotten like maybe, like Clay and Megan Thee Stallion combined to make some giant NIL donation to Washington State. But this is kind of where I'm at with this. Like, I am sure plenty of these guys got a big piece of the NIL pie that we've talked about, whether it's Hawkins or Pinnock or guys that we're still going to get to. I don't think here's how do I say this? Like, I don't think that like they needed this like giant otherworldly NIL infusion in order to get guys like this and Ike Okafor. You know what I mean?
No, 100%.
Like I'm not trying to diminish like what they're capable of. I'm just saying that there's probably not like there's no bidding war for Ike Okafor. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what I'm trying to say, and that's why I don't feel like there has to be some like Sisyphean like NIL infusion.
Right. No, I do think that there has been some of that, but I do think, but I think there are other guys who are examples of that. Not as much, because there's always been the guys like this, right? There's always been guys that come from a higher level or a bigger Power 4 school that take kind of the quote unquote drop down. You take a chance on and you see what happens. So I do think that within that, you're absolutely right that those guys probably aren't taking a big NIL chunk. But I do think there are a lot of other examples too. Again, we'll get to still a few of them that probably do fall into that category, not to mention some of the guys they were able to re-sign.
Yeah. Well, a guy that probably maybe got a little bit bigger piece of the pie is our next one for the 8th of January, which is DJ Warner, a defensive end out of SMU. Played in all 12 games, 2 sacks, 18 QB pressures, 6'4", 231. A massive guy for that position. Started his career at Kansas, played all 12 games. Not surprised he moved on pretty quickly from them.
I was waiting for. I knew when they signed him, when Washington State signed him. I knew the minute that we got on here, you were going to have something to mention about the fact that he played at Kansas, and I know the fact when you interview him for the first time, you're going to make mention of that.
You bet your. Oh my God, I'm gonna, because that's what I did. Remember when Joe Yespe was here on the basketball team? Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh man, it must have been tough to play at K-State when you were at KU.
he was like, wait, what? What is this guy talking about?
No. He did say that Bramwich Coliseum at K-State was one of the tougher places that he had to play in.
No, I'm saying he was probably confused at first. Like, wait.
Oh.
Yeah, like he was. Like, he was surprised someone was talking about Kansas State.
Yeah.
And Pullman.
Right. No, I get it.
But anyways.
Anyway, yeah, started his career at KU, played all 12 games as a true freshman, which is pretty impressive. So what he suits up here, whenever he does, 24 games of Power 4 experience, which is no small feat at all.
Yeah, I mean, it's a guy who the full production hasn't been there yet. I mean, this was a monster recruit. This was the number 67 recruit in the country when he came out back in 2024. A 96 rating on 247. Man, he was an absolute dude. I mean, I remember his recruitment. Big time player coming out of high school. But, you know, and it just hasn't necessarily. And here's the thing. He hasn't become an All-American, but you're not sitting here saying, okay, there's been no production. I mean, 18 pressures last year is nothing to sneeze at. That's more than every guy in Wazzu had besides Bobby Terrell and Buda Paletti. You know, when you factor in how many snaps he took, he was getting a pressure on like 12% of his pass rushing snaps. So he's the type of guy who, if he hits his potential, if this is the place where he hits what he is capable of with that athleticism and just raw talent, has the chance to be an absolute game changer for him. I mean, if you were to say who has the highest ceiling of any of these guys, to me, it's Warner. And I know Hawkins is probably a popular answer, but if he hits his ceiling, he's an absolute game breaker for them off the edge. I mean, and he has had production. I mean, that's the thing too, is he had a couple sacks against Boston College. He got 5 pressures in a game against Missouri State, who, again, not a Power 4 team, but probably a little bit closer to what he's about to see when playing at Washington State. He had pressures against Stanford. He had a sack against Clemson. So you look at that and say, okay, there's a blueprint here, and there's a baseline of what this guy can do. And if he hits his full stride and it all comes together, I mean, you're going to see a potentially dominant edge.
This is not always like super indicative of a guy's talent, because some of these offers are, you know, non-committable, or there's a coaching change or whatever. He is another guy that could have gone anywhere he wanted out of high school. I mean, Oregon, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Washington, Arizona, ASU, like he could have gone, you know, all manner of places. And like I said, that doesn't always, you know, tell the full story, but in this case, it most certainly does. Just because of just like how awesome he could be. So
he had six pick sixes as a high school player.
Oh my God. Yeah. 6 pick six at the DN spot?
In his senior year, he forced 9 turnovers between interceptions and forced fumbles. Yeah. So there's a freak athlete part of this.
Oh my God. Okay. Well, maybe, I mean, how many times have we like given some of these DNs grief for not having held on to interceptions?
Right.
Maybe it won't be a problem for him.
No, I'm not thinking so.
All right. Well, chugging right along here, we're going to move on to January the 9th, which is actually over the, I don't know, these days all run together now. So a busy day for them. First one of the day was Matthias McLean.
I think it's Matthias, actually.
Oh, is it?
I thought I saw somewhere that it's that it might be Matthias McLean.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what made me think that, but I almost swear I saw like someone call him like Ty or something as like a nickname, but don't quote. Well, his Instagram is Ty.McLean89. So I'm wondering if it is Matthias, but either way.
All right, McLean is safe.
Yeah, there you go.
Cougs fans might remember him. Well, they probably don't remember the exact player, but they remember the play, which was he forced a fumble on Angel Johnson in the season opener when they played Idaho, which is where he comes from. And they had a chance to scoop and score, which would have given them the lead. And he just comes surging off the edge, beats Ashton Tripp on the left side, and just freaking wallops Angel Johnson.
Was that I think that was the stunt blitz, where he kind of comes late through the middle and someone's late to get over, and it might have been Tripp, but
I think I've never seen Tripp was the one. Yeah, I don't remember the scheme or whatever.
Right, but no, I mean, I just said who would I say has the highest upside of these guys? You know, I would say undoubtedly the guy. If you ask me who is going to give the most production, like that, my bet would be McLean.
Really?
Let me rephrase that. Who do you feel most confident about it, you know, being a contributor? And that would be McLean. I think when you look at the numbers that he had at Idaho, you know, it's, again, we're talking FCS to FBS, but those are pretty darn good numbers when you talk 13 and a half tackles for loss.
His best game numbers-wise was against WSU.
I mean, he had
okay. Sorry. In terms of like PFF grades, that was his best game. Sorry, I should have made that more clear. Yeah,
I mean 3.5 tackles for loss versus Eastern, 3 versus St. Thomas. So he had some monster performances, and a guy who grew up. He's pictures of him at Martin Stadium when he's a little kid. So he's the type of guy who's probably going to put the jersey on and just have that little bit of extra juice, wanting to perform for the team that he grew up cheering for.
Yeah, but he's from Priest River, which I believe that's like a northern Idaho town, as far as I know.
Yeah, very small.
You know who's also from Priest River?
Hit me.
Colton, who had my job before me.
Yes, he is. I knew the town. I didn't know why. That is true.
Yeah. I'm sure people who are listening to this will know Colton. He was the beat writer for, I believe, the 21 and 22 seasons.
Yes. Yep.
And then I took over for him after that. So, man, Priest River guys, they're everywhere. Shout out to Colton, man. All right, moving right along, we have Bo Phillips as a running back out of Central Washington, a D2 school in, what's the name of the town where Central Washington is? Ellensburg. You know who's one of our page designers at the paper went to Central Washington, Connor Vanderweist. So spokesman guys are well represented on this
apparently
portal class. But anyway, so he is a running back at Central Washington, but also was an awesome kick returner too. I mean, he made almost an equal impact in that role than he did at running back, which I think if he ends up playing in any meaningful capacity, I think it's more likely he'll play, a returner.
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of guy who, again, I think is Wazzu just announced Paul Hudson, by the way.
I just saw that.
I saw the alert and the welcome to the police. I'm like, oh God.
No.
Okay, we've covered that. Yeah, I mean, another guy who I want to say grew up a Cougar fan. I might have that wrong, but Snoqualmie kid was the 4A Offensive Player of the Year, which is pretty darn impressive. He's a guy who, didn't get a ton of run at Central Washington, but showed some flashes and, 11 carries for 69 yards and a touchdown against Montana. So that's talking a step up in a really good FCS team at that.
The FCS national champions. Sorry, you say Montana. Yeah, Montana State was.
I think semifinalist.
Semifinalist, yeah.
The kick return's notable. So the type of guy who, maybe gets into a role as a kick returner, realistically, they don't. Leighton Smithson graduated. They probably are going to need someone to return kicks. I think he's going to have an opportunity to do that. So one of those ads that is coming in as a PWO, but could end up being a contributor, even if it is as a returner.
Yeah. All right, next one, we have another name that I'm going to do my best to pronounce correctly. Jason Frosto Ramos.
As far as I know.
Yeah. Well, the fascinating part about his name is that there's no apostrophe between J. It's just straight on, just Jason, which I think is hilarious and awesome. So he's from a cornerback from Arizona. Didn't actually play at least not any defense at Arizona. Might get on the field as like a special teamer. But before that, he started his career with 2 years at Stanford, where he played in 21 games across those 2 seasons, 5 starts in that span as well. Forced a fumble on, the name of the Notre Dame quarterback who was like
Riley Leonard.
No, the really like handsome quarterback at Notre Dame, Sam Hartman. He stripped and recovered the fumble on Sam Hartman against Notre Dame in 2023. Fun fact. That was one of the clips I found when I looked him up.
I think he might have been banged up last year because he only played like 2 snaps, but guy played 291 snaps at Stanford in 2023. I mean, there is experience here. He played when Stanford came and beat Wazzu in that just horrendous 7-3 or 10-7 game. He played 32 snaps, gave up. Now, naturally, he was the guy who gave up the touchdown pass that game. But,
did he really?
Yeah, he was credited with the touchdown. But
wait, what was the touchdown? I don't even who scored.
I'm guessing Kyle Williams.
Dude, this is gonna kill me. Who actually? I mean, there's literally one touchdown to speak of.
It was either Kyle Williams or Josh Kelly, right? It was Josh Kelly. It was Ward to Kelly
that was
from 9 yards out in the second quarter.
Do you remember the one that was honestly maybe the craziest Cam Award play that we ever saw in person, which was like he's like dragging defenders around. A guy literally is like dragging his jersey like way outside of his pads, and he ends up completing the pass to Josh Kelly. Anyway, we're way off track, but
yes,
he might have been on the field for that play too. So you never know.
Well, no, that was when he gave the touchdowns. What we're saying.
I know. I'm talking about a different play. I'm talking about a different play. Yeah. Maybe he was on the field for both. Maybe, who knows? Proceed. Okay, yeah. So another guy that like could have gone anywhere out of high school. I mean, literally Ohio State, Michigan State, Ole Miss, USC, Arizona, Louisville, Kansas. Not that that's anything to be impressed by. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, he another guy that I think will get another chance to kind of restart his career at cornerback. We'll have plenty of competition between. We didn't cover these guys because we did the last episode, but Jalen Thomas and Jaleel Tucker are two of their cornerbacks that they got out of the portal from San Jose State and Oregon State. So there'll be plenty of competition for them to engage in come fall camp, but would not be surprised to see him on the field in a really meaningful capacity. All right. Next one we have, I don't know if he goes more by Christopher or CJ, but full name is Christopher Solis Lumar, a cornerback out of Cal Poly. And I think when they announced him, it was CJ.
Right.
So maybe that's what he goes by.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. But anyway, played all 11 games last year, 332 snaps, 23 tackles, pretty good PFF grade. Another solid cornerback who he might get on the field. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy who was committed to Boise State and then late in the process ended up at Cal Poly. He played under Brandon Thompson last year. The type of guy who I think, there's some other guys that maybe who you'd think Tucker maybe has a step up just because of the experience. Jalen Thomas obviously has a little bit more experience too, just because he was a redshirt freshman last year. But you like kind of the outlook of a guy with some experience, with a little bit of experience as a young player. You feel like that's the type of guy you can kind of mold, and a guy who maybe has the ability to play a little bit of nickel as well. So it's I think it's another one of those pickups where this guy showed that he can play, and you give him the next jump up. And they've got 3 Cal Poly DBs now between those two, between Bernard, Solis Lamar, and Tiger Polo.
Oh God! I was like, who is the third one? I was like, oh yeah, Tiger Polo exists. Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice. All right. Well, let's keep it rolling. The next one is you mentioned earlier for a reason I'm already forgetting, but Bland Miller, a defensive tackle out of St. Francis, an FCS school in central Pennsylvania. He might win the award for, I don't know if Florida is further away for like furthest, move to Pullman. But anyway, 23 tackles, 14 solo, 1.5 sacks, 1 pass breakup. Got nothing on the pass catching ability of DJ Warner, obviously. But 6'4", 311. I mean,
that's your one tech interior guy.
Yeah.
That's the guy who you put in the middle of the defense, and he's in there to eat some space, stuff the run. Obviously, he has a little bit of pass rush ability, but kind of that big body that they that you need to kind of complement maybe some of the speedier guys on the inside. Yeah, and he was recruited out of the portal, not out of high school, out of the portal by Oregon State. I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. Boston College. By the way, Boston College is like just really competing for Cougs now and taking some of them between Anthony Polano and Atlanta Wright is going there, receiver. So they're portal rivals now. But anyway, yeah, he had offers from Boston College, Memphis, and Colorado State. So definitely a little bit of a coveted prospect out of the portal, and a lot of the guys that they've gotten to kind of fill these like D-line spots are just edge rushers, like defensive ends. There's actually not as many of these because like Ike Okafor, Belen Miller, Akia Martinson, who we'll get to in a second, they still need bodies out on the interior of the defensive line, and I think that's a real position of need, and he'll be able to do that. Sure.
Okay, last one for the 9. This is literally all in one day. Maybe the busiest day we've had so far doing this. But the last one on January 9th was Darius Clemens, a receiver from Oregon State. Didn't play last year at all with an injury, but 25 catches for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns and 24. And that came after 2 years in Michigan where he didn't really get on the field a whole lot, at least not on offense. I think he's going to play a pretty big role next season. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, a guy who was a huge recruit coming out of high school. Obviously, you go to Michigan, you kind of have to be, right? It was, and it's interesting. He didn't play a ton, but he did see 74 snaps, 79 snaps. Got on the field when Michigan beat Washington to win the national title.
The greatest thing in your life.
So far. And then actually had his first career touchdown came against Washington State. Last season in Corvallis, he scored the touchdown to tie the game before then.
He didn't play last year. Oh, you mean 24?
24.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then followed that with just a monster showing against Boise State. Was expected to be maybe Oregon State's top receiver outside of Trent Walker this year. And then I think tore his Achilles. So big body, physical, the upside you feel like is still there, and the type of guy who you can see excelling in Kirby Moore's offense.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the receivers that they've gotten commitments from are of the smaller, speedier variety where they're playing probably more of the slot. He fills the position of need where it's more of a big body outside guy, which they don't really have a whole lot of. I mean, even like Tank Hawkins is like 5'10", something like that. Mm-hmm. So they fit on the field in like pretty different ways. So I don't think it's impossible to see them on the field at the same time next season. I'm a little bit, if I'm a fan, I'm a little nervous just about the injury history and the fact that he didn't play a lot in Michigan. And, when he plays in 26, it'll have been 2 calendar years since he got on the field in any meaningful capacity. So maybe you have a little bit of question marks around that, but you can't take away what he did in 24.
Right. Right. Or just the pure upside and size that you feel like he does possess.
Yeah. All right, we're getting a little bit toward the end. So next one is Max Dean, a punter, who a product of a program that has been very kind to the Washington State Cougars, Pro Kick Australia, which produced Nick Haberer, who we have somehow already mentioned on this podcast. Max Dean is a transfer from New Mexico State, where he played last year, redshirted in 24, played last season. Do you know he had 20 punts inside the 20?
Yeah.
That seems impossible.
He was really, really good last year. I mean, it's I think this is good. He's the type of guy who, if they need him, will be great. Obviously, Washington State hopes they never have to use him, but I think that can be a weapon. We've seen that in the past, how it can be utilized very efficiently and effectively, and I do think that there's a chance that he can really contribute in terms of flipping the field and creating opportunities for the defense in the instance of the offense, isn't able to get going at certain points.
Yeah. Not just a huge leg, but a really accurate leg as well, which, again, no small feat. So he will, do they have any, because Ryan Harris is in the portal. I don't think he's coming back. So
he committed to Arizona. So.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. He will not be coming
They've
back.
got the Aussie kid that they signed at the end of the signing period, Ethan Gurney, I think it is.
Oh, yeah. I was wondering about him.
But I haven't heard anything from him. I mean, I assume I haven't until I hear otherwise that he's still coming to Washington State. But again, that's also a freshman who has no experience, kicking in college football.
He might not have even made it over here.
Right. I mean, who knows?
Yeah, right. All right, second one from January. Oh, I guess this was Saturday. So second one from Saturday is Akio Martinson, who I also mentioned earlier. Another DT, another one of the two JUCO guys so far in the class.
Two new JUCO guys.
Well, yeah. So Martinson was playing the first 2 years of his career at San Jose State. Didn't get on the field a whole lot, so he transferred to American River College, which is in the Sacramento area. 10 games, 42 tackles, 6.5 for loss, 3.5 sacks, and he's doing this at 6'2", 305. So another guy kind of in the ilk you mentioned, who's kind of a space eater, but seems to be pretty athletic as well. Yeah.
No, I mean, probably, again, fits more of the one tech ideology, but maybe has the idea or has the ability, I should say, to play a little bit of that three tech and maybe slide outside a little bit. So I think another guy, though, that on the surface at bare minimum gives you a guy to eat some space in the middle of the defense.
Yeah. Has a little bit of FBS experience too. So not a total upside play either. Like, he has pretty proven production. All right. Moving right along here, back to the offensive side, we have Daniel Blood, who is, I would say he's in the running for name of the class, but I think that there's another name in here. Oh, the Jay Song. Like, there's some crazy names in this class, but Daniel Blood is a pretty sick name.
Right.
So he was one of the Missouri guys that Kirby Moore brought over, but I think the real assist has to go to J.R. Blood, who's the director of recruiting. They have like 8 different jobs with like seemingly the same purpose, but director of recruiting strategy is his brother. So Daniel didn't play a whole lot in Missouri. 15 catches for 152 yards over 3 years. This was a guy I mentioned earlier, the guys that I was feeling great about, the guys I was like kind of on the fence, definitely an on the fence kind of guy, and not like because a lot of the guys that we talked about are like upside plays, have not played a whole or had not been in college very long, but he was in Missouri for 3 years, limited experience. So what's your feeling on Daniel Blood?
I think the thing that stands out is he knows Kirby Moore's offense, right? He's played in it for 3 years. So there is some familiarity there. It's an experienced guy, maybe, the type of guy that you kind of build around from a culture standpoint, can serve as a bit of a mentor. And maybe you feel like, with some more opportunities and with not having to play against the SEC, there is still some upside for him to contribute. But I do think that what probably stood out the most is just the fact that the system well, and it's worth mentioning that Iowa State wanted him too, so it wasn't just Washington State.
He was on a visit there, right?
Yeah, he was on, was on or was scheduled to. Either way, so obviously Washington State was not the only team to see something in him. I think only 48 run blocking snaps, but a 72.3 grade in that category. So maybe you feel like he can be kind of a physical blocker, considering you lost Carter Papps and Mackenzie Aline, who were kind of your best two at that. Ganache Morley still in Pullman, but I do think that there is something to be said just about the experience and the knowledge of what Moore is trying to do offensively.
No, that matters. Okay, we're making pretty good time here. We only got 3 more, I believe, including the one that came across like an hour ago. So next one came from on Sunday, Jack Peterson, who's a tight end out of UCLA. Big freaking guy, 6'5", 240. Sounds like a guy that could chop down a tree or something. So across those 4 years at UCLA, 23 catches, 198 yards, and 1 touchdown. Another guy that seems to be trying to go out on the right note and get some more snaps at a level he can do that at. And seems more of the pass catching variety too. Again, the PFF grades are not everything, but not really compelling blocking grades on PFF. So, but another tight end and on a team that would have 4 going in, at least 4 going into next year.
Yeah, I mean, and again, a guy who's got 575 snaps, primarily in the Big Ten. A veteran piece. It's a young tight end room outside of Hudson Cedarland. I mean, even Lechner's only in his 3rd year. Or I guess it'll be his 4th next year. But then you get Baker, who's going to be a 3rd year, a lot of 2nd years, and then obviously you got Salmon coming in. But I think just in the sense of he gives you some of that stability, a guy who probably can do a little bit of both. And then again, a guy that maybe you feel like against a different level of competition can maybe open up some. I mean, again, as a 4-star recruit, as a big recruit coming out of high school, maybe you feel like even though it's been a few years, there's still one more level that he can get to be a productive pass catcher.
Yeah, well, the interesting part is that the 2 tight ends who I think we would both agree would project to play the most are kind of the same ilk, where him and Lechner are both more pass catchers. And and like I said, Lechner and Bo Baker both re-signed. So maybe this is kind of what Kirby Moore wants out of his tight ends, just kind of like more athletic pass catchers. One of their best blockers last year was a tight end, and Adam Olafaye. So, but maybe the bet is we can get the blocking we need from our offensive linemen, which put a pin in that because we got to get to that after we get to this last couple guys. But yeah, I think with the competition level that he'll be playing at, he will be able to produce. All right. Last two on the list here, one of which came across literally like an hour ago. But first up, we have Ryan McKendry, who is a receiver out of Los Medanos College in California. Led all this is crazy. Led all of California JUCOs in receiving yards and touchdowns. So 44 catches, 1,221 receiving yards, and 14 touchdowns. Offers from so I think it was Sac State, Cal Poly, with a couple other ones, Indiana State, and a couple other FCS. So the only FBS offer he got came from WSU. A bigger outside receiver, which I think is kind of one position that they need alongside Clemens. What's your take on Ryan McKendry?
Yeah, I mean I just was driving back to the Pullman
you probably
today.
Didn't know about this until recently.
No, I saw the note. I haven't had a chance to really watch a lot of tape on him, but I mean the numbers are impressive. The size is impressive. Just the quick looks I got is kind of some of he surprises people with his speed because he's a big body. You don't necessarily see him blowing by guys, but the tape does show that ability. So, I think a guy who, is maybe going to be kind of a weapon just in the vertical passing game and show the ability to go up and get the ball, high point the ball well. Maybe the type of guy who can be used in the red zone pretty effectively.
That's a good point because sometimes, I mean, like these coaches are so obsessed with the goal line fade. So maybe, I don't think it's a smart play, but maybe he could find a niche as that kind of guy. I don't know. Okay, last one here before we answer some questions that we might not have addressed already. Oh God, I'm going to blank on his name as I'm about to say it.
Paul Hudson III.
Paul Hudson, yeah. You already wrote him up, so maybe you could tell us a bit about Paul Hudson.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of your classic 3T guy, 3 technique. He's 6'1", 260, but kind of has the build that he can play defensive tackle, defensive end. All Sun Belt honorable mention this last year, 40 tackles, 6.5 for loss, 3.5 sacks. He intercepted 2 passes. He had 1 less interception than the Wazzu secondary this past year, and he had a pick 6, 46-yard pick 6. So
good.
He's been around. He's played at Austin Peay, at Campbell, at Marshall.
2 stints at Campbell.
Yeah, 2 stints at Campbell, 20 pressures on 485 snaps across 11 starts this season. Like the type of guy who I think can come in and really play in a number of different positions. A guy who you can plug in at DT for certain situations, pass rushing situations, but also a guy that, hey, you need to stop the run, but you want kind of his skill set in there. You can slide out and have him play kind of off tackle on that edge.
I do like the idea of getting a guy that, because a lot of their guys that they filled in on the D line are kind of slotted in. Like the guys that are edge rushers are edge rushers, and the guys that are DTs, like inside guys, are just almost purely inside guys. But I do like the idea of having a guy that can kind of, fill both needs. The only thing that, like, I don't know, man, like if you're a fan, like when you tap into the fan, whatever fan you have inside you, does it make you nervous at all to have a guy that's been at like four stops in 4 years? Like, I feel like that.
Not anymore.
I don't know. Not anymore. Yeah.
I think it's just the way it is now. I mean, it's, it's a lot of times
still,
with
that's
guys.
Kind of extreme though, still, I mean, I get people are moving around all the time, but
I mean, there's plenty of, there's a lot of guys who are going to be on their second stop in 2 years that just went to Iowa State. There's going to be, is there any guy who, Polano's on his 3rd stop in 3 years. So it's just that's just the nature of the beast is guys just move around now, and it can be for coaching changes. It can be for opportunities, but I think at this point, and you know what, maybe there are certain spots, maybe at a quarterback, okay, you'd like a guy who maybe has had a little more stability, But I think at a defensive tackle where you're just going out there and you're not necessarily the leader of the defense in terms of like you're the one doing everything, you're the quarterback, blah, blah, blah. You just go in there, know your assignment, get after the quarterback, stuff the run. I don't think it matters that much personally.
I would be fascinated to know like the details of what has led him to each spot, because I think some guys kind of get unfairly maligned as guys. Oh my God, he's been at 18 different schools. Sometimes, like in the case of like, great example is Tyon Graham-Foster at Gonzaga. I mean, the dude literally was like had some like health issue, I believe. Yeah. And so that's what kind of like held him back. So because people are like, oh my God, he's like 28, whatever. But like there's a literal health issue, and sometimes it's helpful to know the details of like what's actually going on. Okay, well that is all the portal guys.
Whoa, well, all the portal guys, but. Probably ought to mention Lance McGee.
Oh, yeah. We did mention him at the top. Oh, we should definitely mention him. Oh my God.
But I mean, obviously, I think one of the bigger storylines. I mean, this was the 4A State Player of the Year in Washington. 2,500 yards rushing, 42 touchdowns. A guy who Wazzu had on campus in the spring. The rumor was he came in a little heavy to that visit, and the Cougar coach at the time kind of backed off a little bit, goes to Oregon State, obviously shed any weight he had because he was outstanding this year, commits to Oregon State, decommits when Bray leaves, recommits, and then goes and he was telling Andrew Nemitz that he was kind of concerned about where his spot because Oregon State had flipped Trey Garrison, Washington State's previous running back committer, one of them. So there was some concern of like, what's my spot look like? He said he hadn't talked to Marcus Shepard. So I think the biggest question is going to be, where does he play? Is he a running back or a linebacker? But I mean, there's no underselling the importance of that yet.
I mean, here's where I'm at with Lance McGee. Huge. I mean, to get a guy of that caliber is just an enormous recruiting win. I think who knows? I mean, the guy has 4 more years to play. It's okay. But like, I think what the position he plays will probably depend on like how quickly he wants to get on the field. He might not. I mean, maybe there's no chance he plays as a true freshman anyway. But like, if he like wanted to give it a shot, it would be pretty difficult to break into the running back rotation this coming year.
Right.
Kirby Voorhees back, obviously Maxwell Woods and Leo Puglisi. I guess Leo is not officially re-signed, but he's coming back. But literally their top 3 running backs are all coming back. So I don't think this is the year where he becomes a meaningful running back for Wazzu. But linebacker, again, this might not be relevant for his freshman year, but linebacker they're not nearly as deep at. I mean, they lose almost their entire top linebacker core. They do return Keith Brown, who we both, I think, agree will probably start. But if he does play linebacker, so for those who don't know, he was playing linebacker in his first 3 years of high school in Yakima, and then transferred for this last season to Sumner, where he put up just like obscene numbers. I had him like 40. I think it was like 42 touchdowns, something ridiculous like that. I think six touchdowns in the state title game. Like
back to back 300-yard games in the state playoffs.
I think those are the semifinal and state title games. Yeah. Like the 2 most important games.
he almost had 400 in one of them. I mean, that's like, it's, I know the last staff wanted him at linebacker, and as you mentioned, maybe that's where he fits better, but like, he rushed for 391 yards and 6 touchdowns in a state championship game.
Yeah.
I mean, there's
it's like at the 4A level too. It's not like he's playing like 8-man football and just I
mean, and Lane Stevens, who's been a power in 4A for a long time in the state. I mean, 391 yards. So that's nothing to sneeze at. Put it that way.
Yeah, I think that people are concerned about like his 40 time, which I believe it says I read somewhere he has a 4.50 40 time, which like is not overly. He's not a burner by any means, but he's also like I think like you would, if you're a fan or a coach, you would be more okay with that if he was this like big burly guy that just kind of like ran people over. But he's only 6'1". He's not that either.
Sure.
You know what I mean? So I'm not saying he can't play running back. I think there's plenty of potential there, but he's just like kind of this like weird in between style where he's like not not huge, but also not really fast either. But he's going to make a big impact in one way or another. And again, I was watching Die Hard when that came across, so you can thank me for thank me for getting that commit. Okay, let's address a few of these questions in here. At least the ones that we somehow have not covered so far. The one that I did want to bring up is the fact that they have not gotten an offensive lineman out of the portal so far.
They even lost an offensive lineman to the portal.
That's true, but we also agree that they need to add a piece or two, or at least we thought they would.
I would say so, but here's the interesting thing is it's also a tough sell because you have guys who have somewhat established themselves, but right. I do think, yes, you need some depth line, but when you're working out the numbers too, you haven't lost the portal. You lost 3 seniors, obviously, and those were losses. Those were seniors, Vaipulu, Dew, Hilborn, but in theory, I think every other position in terms of immediate need was a bigger immediate need simply because of the numbers. They just didn't have the numbers at a lot of those positions. Running back has obviously turned into less of one, but for a while you didn't think you were getting Leo back. He was in the portal. So my feeling is that they have kind of really prioritized replenishing the defense because you lost so much there. And again, you went into the portal with 2 defensive tackles with Beatty and Elijah Tucker. And then maybe the offensive line is okay. They feel like they can either A, replenish that with some young talent, get a couple like prep signees, a couple JUCO guys, or maybe some, flyer depth pieces that kind of can develop for a couple of years, but they don't necessarily, first off, the high priced offensive linemen are usually extremely high priced. So that's not a bidding war you can normally get into, but maybe, see kind of what develops over the next few days. And it's important to remember the portal closes Friday for entries. Guys can still commit out of the portal. Now, it does get tricky with Washington State because classes started today and there's only so long you can enroll late, but there are ways around that if, whether it's even enrolling in the spring. So I do expect them to add a couple offensive linemen, but I do think it is important to note that there were much bigger priorities just based on positional numbers.
Without a doubt. The other thing is that, like, the more time passes, like, here's where I'm at. Like, I don't think they were ever going to be able to fork over the money to get the kinds of offensive linemen that would have been available in the first few days of the portal. You know what I mean? Like, those are not cheap at all. But I also think the more time passes, the more it's like, all right, like, you got to get somebody in because
it's also possible they have commitments that just haven't announced yet.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I mean, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes. But because right now, I mean, the offensive linemen on the roster are there. Again, it's important to keep in mind. They're at who we would imagine if they had their first game of the season tomorrow. They have the guys that we think would start between Ashton Tripp, Donnie Lester, Kyle Martin, Noah Dunham, and Jalen Caldwell at right tackle. But I don't think it's smart. And then, I mean, you have like Nick Backen on the hook for next season, but like, it's not very much depth.
I think my question is, and this is, I think, kind of what maybe they're going is, do you think you can get someone out of the portal that would be an upgrade over those 5 guys you mentioned? Because if the answer is no, then I think you can take a little bit more time. You can be a little bit more judicious in finding guys. It's not a mad scramble of we've got to find a guy who can start day one. If you feel confident enough in the 5, even adding Bakken, Xavier Thorpe, Chris Lino, Sone Falialo, to that mix, you feel like you've got 5 offensive linemen that can start on your roster. You can be a little more deliberate in who you want to add and maybe focus on that just a little bit later once you get some of the real big positions of need, because you're not necessarily recruiting guys that you need to have start day one. Whereas, the defensive tackles, they've got to get guys who can play like, tomorrow basically.
Right. Okay. Let's check out some of these questions. Well, what we got here? We've kind of talked about some crazy NIL cash injection, which obviously has happened on some level. Where it's coming from, I don't have any firm reporting to give you. I don't know if maybe you do.
Go to cougsfan.com. You can find what you need to know there.
You don't have any crazy reporting on NIL there, do you?
Go to cougsfan.com right now. Front page.
Yeah?
Yeah. Where is infusion of money for Wazzu football recruiting coming from? John Harlow lays it out.
Oh, is that your story?
No, I didn't write it. Greg Witter wrote it for Coug Fan, but check it out.
All right.
That'll have your answers.
There's the answer, I guess. Okay. What? Oh my God. I'm going to pretend that I'm not seeing a question about Devin Ellison potentially coming back. I'm going to pretend like that's not a question that I got.
No.
The answer is no. And if I see his name again, the answer is no. Okay. What else we got here? Offensive lineman. Okay. This was kind of a 3-parter from Castro Easton. Offensive lineman. We just talked about that. He says, has there been any interest in any other QBs in the portal?
I mean, they could theoretically, but I feel like if they keep Duggar, you kind of have that other veteran. I don't want to say maybe veteran's a loose term, but that other kind of somewhat experienced body. I do think they'll have a prep quarterback, but it's also a tough sell. You know, you probably sold Pinnock on the fact that he was going to have a good shot to start.
Right.
You don't want to be lying to him, and you can't really sell that again.
Right. And then the third part of his question, which we were talking about this before we hit record. So he says, how many more commits and transfers do we need to realistically have the roster filled out? So they have 30, I believe it's 34 guys that are outgoing from the portal. And as of right now, they have like 24/25 guys that have signed from the portal. You get the 26 with Lance McGee. And what does that put them at for total players?
It's somewhere in the 90s. We've got something, again, CougFan.com plug. We've got something on it. It's hard to figure out.
This is shameless.
It's hard to figure out the math, though, sometimes is the problem. Because because there are guys that we don't know if they're going to be back, right? Not every guy has been announced as having re-signed. And sometimes guys don't enter the portal. They just are done playing. So it's hard to ever know. It's just the way I always say it is, they're going to be working. They're not going to have too many players at the end of the day. And I don't think they're going to say no to players because, we have too many guys. We can't take you. They'll work something out.
Next question comes from Jared Holstad. Part of his question has to do with the NIL thing that we just talked about, which clearly is just a matter of going to Jamey's site and finding it out. But the other part of his question, which I think is more interesting, or at least what's more new, is should WSU, given the new talent, should WSU be competing for a championship in year one with Kirby? I think this is like it's possible, but this is the risk you run with the guys that you've taken, the guys that are more of an upside play. Is that I think it's how many of these guys do you need to really hit on to do that in year one? And it's hard to know, you know what I mean? The guys you mentioned, like Ike Okafor and Adua Okunde, who knows how they'll do. You have a little more stability and guys you feel better about in terms of experience, like Lena Zunk or DJ Warner. But a lot of these other guys are we don't know if they're going to pan out. I mean, they certainly are capable of it, but I think it's impossible to even predict just because of how many guys you're banking on just to be awesome when they haven't really proven that they can do that, at least not consistently at this level yet.
Right. There's a lot of, in theory, I think it's definitely possible, but in theory and in reality are very different things. Put it that way.
Yeah. This is so fun to look at because I was looking at, I'm doing some work for the opposition here. So I looked at the 247 portal rankings, and understandably so. WSU and Oregon State are the top two in the new Pac-12, I should say. And then you turn around and the Cougs are the last in prep recruiting for obvious reasons. A lot of their top guys went to Iowa State or flipped to Oregon State in the case of Trey Garrison. But in terms of the transfer ranking, so actually Colorado State is pretty highly ranked in both categories. So if we're kind of trying to figure out how the new Pac-12 is going to shake out in year one, they could be up there. Boise State is always competitive. And
San Diego State coming off a 9-win season.
State, yeah, exactly. Trey White oh my God, can you imagine the size of the bag he got at Texas Tech to go there?
Don't get me started on Texas Tech. I will get us off track so quick if you get me going on Texas Tech.
You must have been celebrating like no one's business when they lost in the playoff.
You know what? Here's the thing I don't like too. All right, you got me going. I'll keep it brief, but they went and signed like 4 or 5 like considerably big transfer portal defensive linemen. My problem with that is they are paying a lot of those guys some serious money, and those kids, a lot of them are going to go sit on the bench. And it's the thing that I hate about, maybe more than anything else, about this era of college athletics is you are having kids who are getting, borderline lied to about how they're going to play. And then they're going to go and then they're going to sit on the bench. It's why you see a lot of guys transfer up and then transfer back down. Because, I hate that happens. It bugs me that it happens. And I hope it works out for all the guys that went there. But it's, when you bring in that many guys at one position, all who are very highly rated and very highly touted, there's going to end up being guys
someone's going to suffer.
Yeah, not everyone can play. Yeah. That's the fact of the matter. Not everyone can play.
They're also getting, and no, I'm not trying to say that I don't feel bad for them that get the short end of the stick. They're also getting ungodly paydays. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm sure it softens the blow when you're getting, $1.2 million or whatever.
Absolutely.
But I do agree where it's like someone has to, be the odd one out, and what they're being told, I can only imagine. Okay. I feel like most of these other questions we've kind of covered in different ways. The last one that I don't think this is so. This comes from 509 Grizz, who says, "I'd like some reassurance that the efforts in this year's portal are not just a one-year Hail Mary. I know we have no idea how long Kirby's going to stay. It's nice to know, or it would be nice to know whether or not the additions and roster retentions we've made will be a standard." I wish I could give you better reassurance, but the reality is, like we mentioned at the top, it's just like this is a year-to-year thing. You just never, you never know. I'm sure there'll be some guys in this class that end up staying multiple years, and maybe they don't pop until year 2 or maybe even year 3. But the reality is just that this is such a year-by-year thing that you just no way to know. All right, we're going way over time here, so let's start to wrap this up. Couple last things. Basketball, the Washington State basketball team, their next game is against Gonzaga on Thursday. Home game against Gonzaga, so that'll be a lot of fun. I think that's on CBS. Is that on CBS Sports Network?
CBS Sports, yeah.
I believe. Yeah. They brought some awesome food for the media last year, so hopefully they come back with that this year. But anyway, they're playing Gonzaga. They had won 5 of the last 6, and they lost we mentioned. Actually, maybe we did mention. They lost to St. Mary's the other day. Acquitted themselves pretty well. I mean, they got it down to 3 on multiple occasions.
Yeah, I mean, that's a game that when they go down 18 last year, that game's over. So St. Mary's just really, really good at basketball. I mean, it's as simple as that. They beat a lot. It was the most points that St. Mary's had given up in a regulation game at home since like 2021. So
that's crazy.
They were able to score on them. The defense struggled. It's just a bad matchup. St. Mary's can shoot threes, but their bigs are such. I mean, you don't have an answer for Paulius Morauskas. He's just that good.
Very few teams in the WCC will have an answer for him.
Yeah, right. I mean, there's one. It's Gonzaga. He's every game that he's only been sub 10 points once, and he only had 7 against Davidson. But 24-30, and he has really just smoked Wazzu over the last 3 years, 25, 30, and 24. He was maybe a little upset that Wazzu swept him the year before.
Oh, at Arizona, yeah. The cynical side of me, because we've here, just to wrap it up on basketball, the cynical side of me looks at, we're in the middle of January now, and I feel like we've just said the same thing a million times where it's like, okay, they had a really, really tough non-conference, but they're getting better at this, they're getting better at that. At some point, you got to start winning the games.
Well, sure, but until
I don't think, again, I'm not faulting them for losing to St. Mary's on the road. That's almost an impossible game to win for a lot of teams in the conference. But I do think there has to be an end point to the whole we're turning a corner in this way, we're getting better, we have this experience and that experience. At some point, it's got to lead to wins.
Yeah, and I think you got the Gonzaga game Thursday. I think, as we can probably say, there's not a great chance they win that game. But then you've got to run 6 straight games against sub-100 KenPom teams. Yes, San Francisco on the road will not be an easy game. As I said, I think last week, that is a beatable team. They're a good team, but they are a beatable team. And I think there is the opportunity for Washington State to go down there and get a win. And then you get San Diego on the road. They're better. It's still a very winnable game. Pepperdine at home, you should not have any trouble with. Seattle U at home has suddenly started to slide a little bit. And then you got Portland at home. You should win that game. And then you've got Oregon State on the road. You have a good chance. I mean, Beavers are good at Gill Coliseum. That's still a very winnable game there. And then you get into Santa Clara, Gonzaga, Pacific, St. Mary's, which will not be an easy stretch. LMU after that as well before closing at Pepperdine. So after the Gonzaga game, that's kind of the 6-game run that I think will tell the tale a lot of where they're going to finish in the WCC in terms of, are they getting an at-large bid of the NCAA tournament? No. But if you can win enough of those games, I think you'd at least have an outside shot at the CBI, the CI, the college basketball crown, whatever, one of the other tournaments to at least get a couple more games and some more experience. But you've got to probably go on a pretty good run there in the middle of that conference slate after Gonzaga and stack enough wins to really get a chance to have a look.
Yeah, I think we mentioned earlier, like, you got to take care of business in the games that you're supposed to take care of business in. But then you got to maybe flip one or the other 2 games that, you're not really expected to win at the moment.
Right.
So we'll see how the rest of that plays out. All right, we're almost at an hour and a half, so we're going to get out of here. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. Thank you for the questions. I know I didn't give everybody a long much notice to send in your questions. I just put that out this morning. So next week I'll put that out a day before or something like that. But we appreciate you guys for sending those in. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And Jamey, I will talk to you next week.
Sounds good.